Hey everybody, it's your friend Carson coming back at you again. I figured it was time again to do another video. It's been a little while since I've done one, so yeah, I figured I'd do another one. Today I decided that I'd go ahead and demonstrate a really simple and basic thing that I learned, and it's one of the first things I learned as a glass blower. So this video is going to be geared more towards a beginner, and like a lot of my videos are. So anyways, we'll do a couple of different iterations of the same thing, I thought. So today I'm going to be demonstrating a simple Frit pendant, and if anybody doesn't know what Frit is, if you're catching this when it goes on the YouTube channel, Frit is just crushed glass, and we use different colors, if we can see that, of crushed glass, and it's just one of the ways that we're able to decorate things as glass blowers. So let me go ahead and just describe a little bit about the materials and stuff that I'll be using. As we just saw, I've got a little stainless steel bowl here full of Frit, and this is I call it my happy mix. So it's just a bunch of different colors mixed up. I got a sample pack from Mountain Glass of Tags Frit like 4 years ago when I first started blowing glass, and I've still not used it all. I use Frit mostly for pendants and stuff, so it just takes a little bit. All the Frit in here is kind of the same color family. I mixed up a bunch of different colors, but it's all kind of in the cobalt area. There's some jackpot in here, so there's some glass that has some sparkles to it and everything else, but there's no yellows, oranges, or reds in this mix. So it's mostly of the blue, the blue-green color family. So I'll be using this. I'm going to try to keep this in shot, and I don't know if it's going to let me, but I've got this marver here, just this little piece of graphite. Got a piece of 15 millimeter rod, and it's just welded up to a little handle. I'll be using tweezers quite a bit. I'll be using a long, skinny brass reamer. That's pretty much it. Let me actually, also, in keeping with the tradition, I've got one of my coolest hats, I think. It's my Pimp Trick Gangsta Click hat. My buddy Patrick also has one. So, it's a purple leopard print fuzzy trucker hat. I mean, you can't go wrong. The other thing that I was just going to show you guys is I'm wearing one of these Frit pendants, and I made this one quite a while back. You guys can see inside there. We're going to be making this design basically, and I don't think I'll be doing all of the embellishments on here, but we'll go through how to make the inside part and the bail and everything else. There's a couple of tricks that I learned that'll really help kind of speed, make these things most efficiently. So, one of the things that I'm doing right now in my life is I'm getting ready for springtime festival season. So, it's about, making some products and getting some product ready to go. The great thing about Frit pendants is I think they're really pretty. And I think pretty much anybody can do them. It's a very good beginner thing to start doing. Doesn't take a lot of time to make them. It's not really material intensive. It doesn't take a super big torch to make it. This is all solid work, so if something goes wonk, you can kind of push it or pull it, kind of back into shape, and we'll go through a couple different techniques on how if something goes really wrong, how to change it to make it, make it better, and like you meant to do it, and people really love them. I was thinking about this experience I had. I guess it was last summer. I was at a small town festival, and it's like in the town square, and there's a lot of families and stuff. And there was this girl there. She must have been, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that. And she comes up to the booth, and she's looking through all my stuff. She said, "Oh, this is very pretty." And I said, "Well, thank you." And she said, "It's my brother's birthday." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's great." And she says, "I'm going to get him something for his birthday." And I just completely, I was like, this is the sweetest thing ever. And so this little girl, she took out her money, and I'm sure it was her allowance money that she had saved up. And she, I told her what the prices were, and, I gave her, $5 off or something like that, because, she was just a sweet, cute little girl. And, she paid me, and she went and gave it to her little brother, who was, maybe 6. And he's like over the moon about this thing. And I just thought that was just such a wonderful experience. And so, it's great to make things that are extravagant and fancy and are expensive, but I think it's also great to make things that are simple, that are attainable, that, the pendants that we'll make today, those go for about $20 a piece in my booth. And so it's not a huge commitment when somebody walks up to the booth. They say, "Oh, I really like that. That's really pretty. Oh, it's only $20 and you made it. All right." So, and for me, it takes time to make, but, it doesn't take a lot of materials. It's not very intensive with the gases and everything else. So I know my intros are kind of long, we'll get us started here in a second, but, I just wanted to kind of share that with everybody. I thought that was just a great little story. So the other thing is that I don't know if any of you guys caught the kiln building vlog, but I'm going to turn this camera just a little bit, and maybe we can see that kiln in the background. If you guys haven't seen that kiln yet, you can check out the YouTube channel, and there's a kiln building vlog. That kiln, that's the kiln I'll be using today for my Frit pendants. So anyways, hey, one of my friends is commenting, and I see you, man. I'm gonna withhold people's names because this is ultimately going on YouTube, and then it's gonna be shared, kind of more broadly with the world. So anyways, I hope you guys can see. I've got the camera in a slightly different, it's a long way longitudinal orientation, so I think you guys can see the flame and everything. Kind of a, yeah, you guys can see that. So anyways, so we'll go ahead and start it out. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is that something really cool happened between, I guess it was the last time I made a video and today. I ended up, there's this list that some website compiled of the 25, best YouTube channels for glass blowers or something like that. And I got on that list. It was really kind of exciting. I was number 14, and Torch Talk I think was number 4 or 5 or something. So I felt really honored about it. We're a small community, and I think the people that do videos are probably even smaller than that. But I just thought it was really kind of neat. So I've loved doing these videos. I don't have any plans on stopping doing them. I just thought it was a really fun thing. So I was really happy about that. Anyways, so yeah. So, and it kind of actually, that dovetails nicely into, I try to do these like a little food for thought topic in my videos. And the food for thought topic today is magic and how we create our own reality. And I think it's a huge topic, but it's actually, I think it's something really worth discussing. So before I get going too good on this. I want to explain as we go along. So I just cleaned off the little pointy end of this thing, and all I'm going to do is make a gather. I'm going to heat up the end of this rod basically. It's not even going to be gathered that much, just a little bit, and I'll stop as I go and try to show you guys. So yeah, this food for thought topic of magic and how we create our own reality. You know, it's fascinating. I know I'm super blessed in my life, and one of the reasons that I know that is because I have a lot of friends and I have a lot of love in my life. But the other thing, all right, so that's where we're at. We just got a little gather. I'm going to come down to the marver, and I'm just going to push. I'm going to push it flat, and I'll show you guys that step. So I'm heating up the front side of this thing, not all the way into the body of it, just kind of the front end of this gather. So I want that to be kind of white hot, going back into orangey hot. Okay, so now it's flat. It's about where we're at. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the face of this thing screaming hot. And the reason I have you guys like this, I'm a lefty. My drive hand is my left hand. I do most everything on the torch with my left hand. So this makes more sense to have you guys angled like this today. You know, I've showed my little cousins, pretty much all my little cousins have now come over here to my studio, and this is what we do. When I'm like, let's make something, let's have you make something and let's do it together. And I've been really impressed with them. They all pretty much got it right away. But I always tell them, make sure you watch how I hold my body. This is how you should hold it in relation to the flame. So I'm actually going to have this thing, the flame is going to be blasting right on the face of this thing. Cat in the house, that's right. So anyway, blasting on the face of this thing. And what I want this to be screaming white hot. And the hotter it is, the more frit it's going to pick up. So anyways, that's what I'm doing at this point. So you guys can see. You see that flame deflecting. And it's just hot. You know, it's just going to be hot. So anyways, this topic is so huge, I almost don't know where to start. But I think what I wanted to start out and talk about a little bit is this, you know, this idea of perception. Our perception is our reality. And I have found, and I always just speak from my experience, but I have found that in my life, my external circumstances, you know, sometimes my external circumstances can be hard. But generally speaking, if I have had enough to eat in a day, if I have a roof over my head and everything else, and I'm just in a crap mood, you know, if I'm just having a quote unquote bad day, you know, what that means is it's everything to do with my perception. And, you know, some of the happiest people I know, you know, they're not bajillionaires. They don't necessarily, you know, have a bunch of family or any of that stuff. They just know the secret. There's this magic trick to life, you know, of learning how to control my perception. And there's that song, People on the Sunny Side of Life, you know, they hit it right on the nose. So I dunk that sucker in there again. And generally what I like to do with these is I like to go 3 times. So I'll hit it once, melt it in, go back, smash it in the frit again, melt it in, go back, smash it again, and melt it, and that'll be my final dump on that frit. So, anyways, yeah, you know, my perception becomes my reality. And, you know, I was thinking about this, like, in the context of, like, heaven and hell, right? That this idea that I can live in either, of those places in my time on Earth, and it's a choice. I get to make that choice on a daily basis. You know where I'm going to live. There's an old parable about there's two wolves. Every person has two wolves inside of them. One is the wolf of negativity, and one is the wolf of positivity. And the question is posed, if both of them fought, which one would win? And the answer to that question is whichever one you feed. Whichever one I feed is going to win. And that is just one of the most powerful ideas that I've ever come across. It's epic, you know. Whichever one I feed is the one that's gonna win. And that's been so true for me. So when I feed that positivity, the positivity will grow and flourish and nurture. And that's not to say that, you know, I'm Pollyanna about my life and, you know, I ignore bad things, or I you know, don't acknowledge things that need to be changed. That's not it at all. But I stay focused on my positive things, the positive actions I can do. I stay focused on the strengths, on my gratitude, on the things that make me happy. And guess what? I get to be a happy person because of that. Because of that decision. There's a decision that's made. And it's so super important, I think, that, you know, I don't think I might have been born with the knowledge, but I don't think I was. It takes practice, you know, it's a discipline, it takes an effort. But when I do that, and when I do it consistently and persistently, my life is wonderful, my life is beautiful, and it truly is. You know, in my outside external circumstances, they change sometimes, but if they remain the same, even, I can still decide to live in that heaven or that hell, so to speak. So, anyways, it's a huge, big topic, and it kind of brings it into this idea of magic. You know what I mean? There's something magical about that. There's something magical about life. So, okay. So this thing is, you know, we've got that gather, that Maria on the end, and it's, you know, melted in. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and put a backing on this thing. And the reason I want to put a backing on it is so that the frit shows up better. Now, if you're first brand new starting the glass, you know, and you're not comfortable with that, you can skip this step, plenty up and pull it off. And when it's sitting on somebody's, you know, on their breast, it will look just fine. When I'm working with somebody that's, you know, brand new on the torch, sometimes we'll totally skip the step of putting the backing on it. So the other thing that I also was going to mention in this video is this application is great for some of those colors that you might not want to use on a piece that's, you know, going to be super expensive. You know, I use this Chinese cobalt a lot for my backing on these little frit pendants. It works great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and it's perfect. You know what I mean? We're talking about, you know, kind of a $20 price point. It works perfect for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up, and I'm going to swirl, you know, go in a spiraling motion from the inside to the outside, and that'll start to create my backing. The other thing that I can mention is that if I let this be a little bit warm, the thing that's going to become the pendant, I can actually create a little bit of a swirl in the frit. So when you look down through the lens, you'll see it kind of swirl. It gives it a little bit of motion. These kind of remind me of the ocean or the sea. And so I kind of like that in a way too. So anyways, let's go ahead and put the backing on this thing. So yeah. So there's something very magical about, you know, my perception being ultimately being my reality, and being able to exercise some level of control over that perception. And what that means is I get to create this reality for myself. You know, I get to focus on those positive things, and, you know, all my wonderful, you know, the gratitude for my wonderful friends and family. And, you know, even though, you know, nobody's perfect, you know, it kind of brings us to this same thing with friendships and family relationships. Uh-oh. I'm running out of propane, guys. This isn't good. This has never happened to me in a live video before. Oh, no. Oh, man. So anyways, we might not be able to get this done. I've been talking too damn much. That's what happened. So anyways, we'll, you know what we might have to do? We might have to pause, come back to it, or you guys might just have to hold on. All right. It only took about a minute. Maybe two. So, looks like 9 people stayed with us. Whew, where were we? That's a first. That's what you get with live video sometimes. The unexpected happens. So, what I had done is I had started my backing, and I'm just going to melt this backing in. Woo! All right. Y'all, I had to go outside to change my propane tank, which is a good thing. If you're a glass blower and your propane tank is inside, it's not an ideal situation. So I was out there in the dark trying to change that propane tank. All right, so we're back in the game here. Yeah, so basically I'm just evening out this backing. Evening it out. And I'm focused on kind of the seam in between the backing and the lens. This is pretty much done. This is fully backed. If I can let it cool down just a little bit, you guys can see. I'm not overly concerned with the backing having a perfect line where it meets the lens. I'm not super concerned about that. There again, you know, if I was making a $200 pendant, I would be concerned about that. But since I'm not, since I'm making a $20 pendant, you know, I mean, I want to do as best as I can, but I also know that if I'm ultimately going to be selling this thing for 20 bucks, you know, I can only spend so much time. So what I'm actually going to do now is I back this thing with cobalt blue, and I'm going to putty up with cobalt blue. And if you guys can believe it, it took me about 3 years of making Frit pendants to figure out that I could putty up to the back of the thing with the backing color itself. Don't ask me why it took me that long to figure it out, but I used to putty up with clear to a cobalt backing, say, and then when I would get ready to crack off the putty, sometimes the putty wouldn't break super cleanly, and then what would happen is it would leave a little fingernail of clear glass on it, and it would be very obvious that, you know, hey, he left a putty mark there. And then I'd have to sit there and pick off clear glass off of the backing, and it was just a pain. And one day I was sitting here and I realized, wait, why am I doing this? Why don't I just putty up to the back of it with the same color as the backing, And then if it leaves a little bit of a fingernail worth of glass on there, I can just melt it in. Don't ask me why it took me about 3 years to figure that one out, but it did. So one of my friends and teachers was telling me the other day, he was saying, anyway, so if you hadn't figured that out yet, there's a tip for you. But one of my buddies the other day was telling me, he's like, Carson, I figured something out. I'm like, and he's like a 20-year glass blower now. I was like, what, man? What is it? He's like, man, he's like, you know how if you got a chunk of silver on the end of a rod, it'll jump off, you know, and when it gets cold, and then you put it in the heat. I'm like, yeah, you know, that happens. He's like, you know what I figured out how to do, or what I should do in that situation? I said, what? He said, I just keep it in the kiln. And I was like, you know, amazing. You know, it only took 20 years to figure that one out. I thought it was just classic. So this is my example of that. So what I did is I ripped this thing off of the deal. I used a narrow flame, ripped it off, and then I grabbed the glass that I didn't want and just tweezed off that. And so now what I've got is like a little poop emoji type shape. And again, back to that initial, or that kind of that first point of how to hold the thing in relation to the flame, in relation to this flame. What I'm doing now is I'm focused on like the peak, the top of that, of this chocolate chip, you know, and so I've got the thing angled down, and I'm underneath the flame, with this flame on the peak of this thing, and what it's going to naturally want to do is create a dome, and that's what I want, you know, for this pendant. I want this lens to be a nice, even dome, so that when you look down the profile of it, it's flat on the back and it's got this dome shape. So that's what I'm doing right now. And the way to achieve that easily and efficiently is to hold it like this, right? So for those of you that are new to glass blowing, you know, glass wants to be a sphere. It wants to be round. And so my job as somebody that manipulates this material is to allow it to do its thing, the thing that it wants to do. Right. Nice dome shape. You guys see that? Kind of like a flying saucer on the end of a stick. It's a nice cabochon shape. Let's let this cool down and we can get a little sneak peek. Somebody commented about they did the same thing. It took them a while to figure out how to punny up with the backing color instead of like a clear rod. Okay, so we can start to see this thing kind of come into view. It's so beautiful. All right. So, anyways, yeah, we're just taking our time. I try to do my best as I go along to kind of explain step by step. Every so often I'll miss a step. That's why I encourage people to ask questions. You know, if you catch this on the YouTube channel, you know, feel free to drop a comment there and I'll do my best to get back to you. So what I did is I just cleaned off the end of this punny rod. This is like a 5mm piece of clear. And, you know, nothing's ever perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be punnying up at a 90. And this punny is going to be the bottom of the pendant. So I'm going to look at which side looks to make the most sense as the top of the pendant. And then I'll punny up to the opposite side of that. And, you know, we don't have to be super particular, but, you know, I like to be thorough in explaining. Alright, and what I did just now is before this punny cooled, I shocked this punny and I cracked it off. So, perfect example. You see I left a little fingernail on there. Now I'm going to pick off a little bit of this fingernail. Nice skinning small flame. Doesn't have to be a raging flame. I'm going to pick off a little bit of this fingernail on the back of this thing. But I don't have to take it all the way off because guess what? It's the same exact color. So if I focus and just melt it in, then it'll all be copacetic. All right, so that's where we're at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blast this little remaining nub right in the middle of it, right where it lives, and that'll clean that right up. We'll give it a little marber there. That'll clean it right up. Bam. I know it's just swamping out the camera, but all right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make an easy bail. I call this like an easy, simple bail. And when you start making these, it might help you a little bit to use a pretty stiff color, like a cobalt or cobalt-based something, or something that's a little darker. I'm going to use a little bit of just regular Stardust for this one. Stardust has a little bit of a sparkle to it. It looks nice. It's just a little bit of extra thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld right onto the opposite side of my punning, and I'm going to make sure that that weld is super stable. And the reason I like doing it like this is because I have complete control. I have total control over, I have it held from both sides. So I'm heating up the receiving end, the body of the piece just on the top, and I'm also heating up this piece of Stardust here. And I'm getting them pretty freaking hot, like screaming hot. And I'll just stick them together and pull a little bit. And that is pretty much perfectly welded. And I don't really have to mess with it anymore. Now, if I did have to mess with it some more, I could. I have it held from both ends. And so at this point, see, there's no compound joints to that. I mean, it's pretty much perfectly welded. But if there was a compound joint, if there was a joint that went whoop, like instead of it being a nice transition, it looked like a chocolate chip sitting on top of it, that's called a compound joint. I like describing it as like if it was a ski slope and a little man had to go down it, he would just woo, go right through. And that's a good joint. If it was a compound joint, he would go woo and then like kind of fall into a crevasse, So, but if I did need to work this a little bit more, I could just pull my flame down small and just hit it like that. Hit it on one corner. Stop, let it stabilize, go back, hit it on another corner. As it is, when I welded it the first time, it turned out good. It is going to get a little bit more heat as I go along, so it should work out just fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up this color rod, I don't know, maybe a half inch. I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe a half inch. And that's where I'm gonna tear it off. So again, I call this my easy bail. There's plenty of ways to make bails, different types of bails. I make them in different ways, but this is just an easy bail. So this is where we're at. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this rod that's going to become our bail medium hot. And I'm going to take the non-scallop part of my tweezers and I'm going to smush, 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 smush. And I'm going to make it nice and flat. So not soupy hot, not cold, just somewhere in the middle. A nice warm glow. And right when it starts flopping around is about the right time to stop heating it. Alright, I'm going to try to keep this on camera. Smush, 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 smush. I don't know if you guys can see that. Now, since I've got it started to smush, I'm going to kind of go on the flat side of that smush. Smush it again. Smush, 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 smush. So now it's kind of flat. Now I'm going to make sure my flame is pulled down pretty small. I'm going to hit it on the flats. Hit it on the flats, get those little marks out of it. Alright. And I can even take and pull it a little bit. And then I'll just kind of elongate it. Flatten it out that much more. Okay, and now here's the move. Come around in here, small flame. We're going to do what Bondu calls al dente. So it's not super hot, it's not flopping. I mean, it's almost flopping. Give it a sec. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That nice al dente. You know. Bam. Okay, so we're not done yet, but that's what we look like at this point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the side of my tweezer and I'm going to push it. I'm going to focus my heat right here and I'm going to push it in. Small flames at this point, like little micro flames. Alright. So now I just smushed it to create that loop. And that's a compound joint. I'm going to work on that. Make it into one piece of glass. That's the idea here. It needs to be one contiguous piece of glass. So it has to get melted in. Alright, now I'm going to come in with my reamer. Trying to keep all this on camera. Grab my tweezers, tighten that up a little bit, pull on it a little bit, tighten it up, make sure it's nice and centered up on there. All right, that's it. Now, all I have to do is grab my tweezers, go through the bale, shock the punny, right? Polish off that little micro putty mark. And I'm done. All right. I'm going to put this in the kiln. I'll come back. We'll do one more. I'll do it a little bit quicker. And we'll call it good. All right. So for this one, I won't explain every single step. I'm going to do one thing a little differently with this one, and I'm going to basically just elongate it. So it'll be a nice way, like I was describing in the beginning of the video. It's kind of a great way to fix a pun or a mistake with a pendant. You know, if you want to try to make them completely perfectly round cabochon, that's fine. But if one side goes a little wonk on you, the trick that I'll show you in this video, or excuse me, in this step of the video, will help out with that. So yeah, I was thinking about the magic thing and how you know, what's magical to me too, you know, and I was thinking about being at a festival and hearing the music through the woods. That to me is something really magical. That's one of those things that grabs me. Talking about that little girl who came up to the booth, and you know, the 8-year-old girl bought her little brother a pendant for his birthday. You know, that's very magical. That's like extremely magical to me. You know, thinking about friends, you know, You know, I like talking a lot about love and agape love, and one of the reasons is that it just ties into everything. You know, it ties into all facets, all aspects, all areas. I went and I have friends that are musicians and good friends, and I went, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago and saw a show where, you know, a couple of my friends' bands were playing, and I got to see them. You know, friendship is magical, you know. There's something very special. There's something really great about having people that want you around, you know, and it's magical to me. And I love it. I love my friends for it too, you know, and I want to have them around. You know, that brotherhood and that kinship, you know, that's huge. I mean, it's just incredible. So anyways, kind of back to that, you know, I reconnected with one of these friends. We used to hang out in high school, and we lost touch, and I didn't make the connection until I saw her at a concert one time. I was like, wait, I know that chick. We used to hang out all the time. And so I saw her at this event the other day, and we got to talking. You know, we had an opportunity to actually have a good conversation, and I was like, do you remember when? And we used to hang out and da 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 da. And she's like, oh my God, yeah. And so we got to talking about that. And then, like, the next day I look on my Facebook page and she wrote, it was so great seeing you last night. And all these other friends just kind of piled on, and they were like, oh man, it was so great seeing you. And I just, you know, there's something magical about that. And I just love that. I don't know, there's just there's so much positivity in that for me. So, you know, and if any of you guys catch this that I'm talking about, you know who you are, and I love you. You know, so I think it's also really important to, you know, kind of use this idea, this magical ability that we as humans have to create our own reality. It's important to take that and to use it for good and to add to people's lives, and to hopefully change in maybe some little way the course of events. I feel so bad about what happened in Florida, and you know, not to bring the mood of this video down, but it's so sad. And that young man, I know he was very disturbed, and I can't imagine what it's like for the victims and the families. You know, but for young people out there that, you know, might have problems, you know, I mean, I was a disturbed young person, and it's really, really, I think, important for me to say that, you know, my life can be what I make it. It can be very good. I just have to put in some effort. And if you're struggling, you know, you don't have to. You don't have to be alone. If I know somebody that's struggling, if somebody's out there that's hurting, you know, it's not forever. You know, life is sweet and life is beautiful, and it's something to be cherished. And if nobody told you today, I love you. And it's just very important that you know that. Sorry. I'm getting a little teary. Anyways, so the pendant, back to glassblowing, right? You know, anyways, you know, nothing is forever, nothing is permanent, and certainly not the negativity. You know, if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, you know, I just know it's not going to be forever. You know, good, bad, or indifferent, it's not going to be forever. When I was younger, I used to get really caught up in this all or nothing thinking, you know, this is going to be forever. You know, if I was having a hard time, if I was struggling with something, I would think, you know, my life is never going to get better. And that's just not true. It's just not true. So, anyways, you know, my hope would be that, you know, everybody out there gets to experience a wonderful and beautiful life, as I have. And if, unfortunately, that's not the case, you know, too many people die young. There's too much tragedy in this world. But again, you know, back onto that positivity. You know, there's so much good in this world as well. So anyways, it's a huge, huge topic. All right, we're back to that poop emoji shape, or this is at this point more like a Hershey kiss, and I'm going to tweeze off some of this glass, and it'll turn back into a poop emoji shape. You know, so, you know, now I have to think about what is the mission, you know? I mean, I've said this before in videos, you know, you can watch anybody blow glass. I mean, you know, I might, you know, hopefully maybe there's something else that I can bring to the table that, you know, it might help somebody. You know, if one person sees that and they think, oh, wow, you know, I think he's being serious. You know, maybe I won't hurt myself today, or maybe I won't, you know, do something real crazy and destructive. You know, maybe then I'm done. You know, my mission is accomplished. You know, that's the whole point. You know, all the rest of it, you know, money, you know, recognition, whatever it is, all that's whatever. I don't care really. I mean, that doesn't make or break me. You know, what makes or breaks me is if something, you know, if I can be a positive change in the world, that's important. Anyways, I'm pretty passionate about that. So, all right, now we're back to this cabochon shape. Maybe a little bit more. A little bit more. All right, and I'm actually going to leave it a little wonk. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's, you know, kind of got a hump to one side, and it's a little bit punchy to the length so you can flatten the back, somebody asked. No, I don't have to flatten the back. The back is already flat. I did that after I went ahead and after I put the backing on, I went ahead and flattened it. So that might be the answer to that question. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, instead of going to the opposite side of where my bail is going to be in front and up, I'm going to go to the side where my bail is going to be. This is going to be the bail, and so I'm going to decide which side of this thing is going to be up and which side of it's going to be down right now at this point. And I'm going to go ahead, again, I want both of these pieces to be pretty much screaming hot. So when I'm going to attach the bail and the piece of glass that will ultimately become the bail, both of them are going to be screaming hot. Bam. Bam. All right. So we don't have any compound joints at this point, but it's not going to be quite perfect, and that's okay. This is now welded on. I'm going to break my punny off. Broke that punny off. Now, I'm going to go ahead and blast this little nub. And while I'm blasting this nub, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up and down vertically. And I'm going to start heating in the tip of this thing, the very bottom of this thing. I want the bottom of it to be the hottest, and I want this body to be warm too. So about halfway down, that's where I'm focusing my heat. And again, I want the tip to be the hottest. Now, the reason that I chose cobalt for this bail is because cobalt's nice and stiff, and this thing is going to have a lot of of heat that's radiating up. So I want, if it was a really loose color or if it was clear, it would start drooping as well. So with this trick, it's nice to have a color that's nice and stiff. All right. All right, so if my piece was a little wonk before, what I did is I made it into like a little V kind of a shield shape. And I think it's a really pretty shape. I mean, it's the same shape as this. And it actually kind of refines it a little bit. So if my Maria was a little bit wonk, I just unwonkified it. So there's a little trick. Now all I'm going to do is clean the end of this punny up. Punny up to the bottom of this thing, right on the tip. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just do the same type of bail that we did before. Just that real simple bail. I like that real simple bail. And that step of flattening it, it's actually kind of optional. You don't absolutely have to. I find that you need less glass when you flatten it, and it looks a little bit more refined when you do. So that's one of the reasons I like to do it. It doesn't take long to do it either. So. Give it just a little bit more here. All right, we're pretty much al dente now. Ready? Good. That's where we're at. A small flame at this point. Boy, you gotta love these GTTs, just how little bitty these flames can get. So handy. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Sorry about the interruption with the running out of propane thing, but we got it done. It'll all come out in the wash. So I really appreciate it. Think about that magicalness, that magic of life, and that feeding each wolf, which one I'm gonna feed today. So. Anyways, it's always a pleasure and an honor to spend a little time with this community. I love you guys. Take care. Peace.